The warm afternoon light filtered through the windows of Murphy's diner as 27-year-old Emma Clark refilled coffee cups and delivered plates of comfort food to the lunch crowd. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a practical bun, and despite working a double shift, she moved with the graceful efficiency that had made her a favorite among the diner's regular customers. Emma had been waitressing at Murphy's for 3 years, ever since she moved to town to help care for her aging grandmother. The job paid enough to cover rent on her small apartment and her grandmother's medical expenses, but it also gave her something more valuable, a sense of purpose in serving others and being part of a community that felt like family. At table 6, 35-year-old Michael Sterling sat with his 4-year-old daughter Grace, both of them regulars who came in for their weekly father-daughter breakfast every Saturday morning. Michael's dark suit was perfectly tailored, marking him as someone successful, though he always treated the diner staff with genuine respect and warmth. As CEO of Sterling Development, a commercial real estate company worth over $60 million, Michael was accustomed to boardrooms and high-stakes negotiations. But these Saturday mornings with Grace were sacred time, the highlight of his week as a single father who had been raising her alone since his wife passed away from cancer when Grace was 2. "Emma!" Grace called out with the uninhibited enthusiasm that only 4-year-olds possess, waving excitedly as Emma approached their table. "Well, hello there, beautiful girl," Emma said, crouching down to Grace's level with genuine warmth. "How's my favorite customer today?" "I lost a tooth," Grace announced proudly, opening her mouth to show the gap where her front tooth had been. "Oh my goodness, that's so exciting," Emma replied with the kind of authentic enthusiasm that made children feel truly heard. "Did the tooth fairy visit you?" "She left me $2 whole," Grace said, her eyes shining with wonder. Michael watched this interaction with the familiar mix of gratitude and something deeper that he felt whenever he saw Emma connect with Grace. Over the past year of their weekly visits, Emma had remembered every milestone Grace shared, celebrated every small achievement, and treated her with the kind of gentle attention that made Grace light up. "What can I get for you two today?" Emma asked, though she already knew their order by heart. "Chocolate chip pancakes," Grace said immediately. "With extra whipped cream," Emma added with a conspiratorial wink, because losing a tooth is definitely worth celebrating. As Emma walked away to place their order, Grace watched her with the intense focus that children reserve for people they find fascinating. "Daddy," Grace said quietly, "why doesn't Emma have any little girls?" Michael felt his heart tighten at the innocent question. "I don't know, sweetheart. Not everyone has children." "But she would be such a good mommy," Grace said with the matter-of-fact wisdom that sometimes startled Michael with its clarity. "She always remembers what I like, and she makes me feel happy when I'm sad." Michael had noticed this too. The previous month, when Grace had been upset about a scraped knee from the playground, Emma had sat with them for 10 minutes, distracting Grace with stories and gentle humor until the tears stopped. It wasn't part of her job, but Emma treated Grace with the instinctive care of someone who understood children's emotional needs. When Emma returned with Grace's pancakes and Michael's coffee, she noticed that Grace seemed quieter than usual, picking at her food instead of diving in with her typical enthusiasm. "Everything okay, honey?" Emma asked gently, sitting on the edge of the booth beside Grace. Grace looked up at Emma with serious blue eyes. "Emma, can I ask you something important?" "Of course you can. You can ask me anything." Grace glanced at her father, then back at Emma, taking a deep breath as if gathering courage for something momentous. "Can you be my mommy?" The question hung in the air like a prayer, innocent and heartbreaking in its simplicity. Emma felt her breath catch as she looked at this little girl who had just asked the most profound question possible with complete sincerity. Michael felt tears spring to his eyes immediately, his chest tightening with a mixture of love for his daughter and awareness of the enormous weight of her request. "Oh, sweetheart," Emma said softly, her own voice thick with emotion. "That's the most wonderful thing anyone has ever asked me. Is that a yes?" Grace asked hopefully. Emma looked at Michael, whose face showed a complex mixture of surprise, emotion, and something that looked like longing. She realized this wasn't just a child's innocent question, but a moment that could change all their lives. "Grace," Emma said gently, taking the little girl's hands in hers. "Being someone's mommy is a very special thing. It means loving them and taking care of them and being part of their family." "But you already do that," Grace said with 4-year-old logic. "You remember when I'm sad, and you make me feel better, and you always know what I like to eat." Emma felt tears beginning to flow as she looked at this child who saw love so clearly and simply. "You know what, Grace?" Emma said, glancing again at Michael, who nodded almost imperceptibly. "I would be honored to be your mommy if that's what you really want, and if your daddy thinks it's okay." "Daddy, is it okay?" Grace asked, turning to Michael with hopeful eyes. Michael looked at his daughter, then at Emma, seeing not just the kind waitress who had brightened their Saturday mornings, but the woman who had been showing them both what love looked like in daily practice. "I think," Michael said carefully, his voice emotional, "that if Emma wants to be part of our family, and if you want her to be your mommy, then we should talk about how to make that happen." Grace clapped her hands with joy, but Emma held up a gentle hand. "Wait, sweetheart. This is a big decision that grown-ups need to talk about carefully. But I want you to know that I love you very much, and I love spending time with you and your daddy." Over the following weeks, Michael and Emma began spending time together outside the diner, getting to know each other not just as customer and waitress but as potential partners in raising Grace. What they discovered was a natural compatibility that went far beyond their mutual affection for Grace. Emma learned that Michael was not just successful but thoughtful, that he had built his business with the same attention to detail and care that he brought to fathering Grace. Michael discovered that Emma's warmth and intuition with Grace reflected a deeper wisdom about relationships and human connection that had nothing to do with formal education or social status. "You know," Emma said one evening as they watched Grace play in Michael's backyard, "I've never imagined myself as a mother before. But with Grace, it feels like the most natural thing in the world." "Grace knew what she needed before any of us did," Michael replied. "She saw something in you that took me longer to recognize, but once I saw it, I couldn't imagine our lives without you in them." 6 months later, Emma and Michael were married in a small ceremony at the community center where Emma had volunteered. Grace served as flower girl, delighting in the fact that her own wish had created this new family configuration. Emma continued working at Murphy's Diner, but now as co-owner with Michael's support, transforming it into a community gathering place that served not just food but connection and support for families throughout the area. Michael restructured his work schedule to be more present for Grace's childhood, realizing that the most important development project he would ever work on was building a family with the woman his daughter had chosen for them. Grace thrived with Emma as her mother, finally having the daily maternal presence she had been missing, but she never forgot that she had been the architect of her own family's happiness. The booth at Murphy's Diner where Grace had asked Emma to be. Her mommy became their family's favorite spot for Sunday dinners, a reminder that sometimes the most important questions are asked by children who see the world more clearly than adults. Their love story became legendary in their small town, not because it was dramatic or complicated, but because it proved that families are created through daily acts of love and care, and that sometimes children understand what adults need better than the adults do themselves. Grace's question had been simple and direct, but it had revealed a truth that transformed 3 lives, that love isn't about biology or legal documents, but about the choice to show up for each other with consistency, patience, and joy. The tooth fairy money that had started their conversation that day was saved in a special jar, not for its monetary value, but as a reminder that magical things can happen when we have the courage to ask for what we need and the wisdom to recognize love when it's offered to us. If this story reminded you that children often see solutions that adults miss and that the most important families are built through daily acts of love rather than legal obligations, please give it a like and share it with someone who might need encouragement about creating family in unexpected ways. Subscribe for more stories about how love finds us through the wisdom of children and the courage to ask for what we need. And please comment below about a time when a child's wisdom changed your perspective, or when someone became family through choice rather than circumstance. Your story might inspire someone else to recognize the love that's already present in their life.